guys are always worried about like how they can improve like individually, like, you know, like at the end of the year when you have meetings, it's like, hey, how can I get better so I can play more? And it's like, well, obviously you need to be a better shooter, you need to be a better ball handler, like be better at passing, be better at this and be better at that. Like those are all these things that individually you can improve on. But like it's a team sport. It's about 5 guys playing as one. You know what I mean? So like again, if somebody's better at the sport when it comes to like, you know, just hooping, but the other person can run the offense better, you know, we need as a team 5 guys that are running something that are all on the same page, because obviously we're going to perform at a higher level when we all know that what we're doing, how we're supposed to be doing it, than just some guy that like once in a while can go off on his own and get a bucket. You know, just enjoy every day. Like don't be worried so much about like what other people think. Like, just be yourself, be authentic. If you're weird, be weird. Like if you're nerdy, be nerdy. Like I don't, you know what I mean?
For the kid who's listening to this, sitting on the bench of their high school or middle school team, what can they do to get more minutes?
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Trips Across the Border. My name is Max. I'm here with Chris, and today we have on the new head men's basketball coach at Elms College, formerly coached most recently at Nebraska Wesleyan, a very successful program down in Nebraska. They were in the Elite Eight last year, I believe.
Yep. And
then previously at a couple other D3s. Actually, coach was on the bench at Elmira when me and Chris were also on the bench at Elmira 2 years ago when we were at Medaille. And he's coached at the Division I level as an assistant coach at St. Bonaventure, and just been around a lot of very successful programs. And he's working to try and bring that to our program this year, and as we go forward and build that culture and the necessary things to take the program to the next level. So welcome to the podcast, Coach Pish.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited
for the time.
Excited to be here.
We're going to start it off with, did you play basketball growing up? And if not, how did you fall in love with the game?
So yeah, I did play basketball growing up, obviously all throughout, like started probably in like 4th grade or whatever, started playing up through the youth leagues. I did play out throughout high school, and then after high school I decided I mean I wasn't this great player or anything, so I wasn't like getting recruited to go and like be a hooper anywhere or anything like that, but I just wanted to go to school and be a regular student and stuff like that. I knew some people that had played college basketball or played college sports, and I was like, I didn't really want to get into that. I knew the type of commitment and like, you know, all the things that come with being a college athlete. So I didn't want to make that commitment at the time. I just wanted to be a student in college. But what made me fall in love with the game was, you know, I just liked all sports in general. I played, you know, any type of sport I could possibly get. Obviously playing basketball a little bit more often because you can just play it in your yard. So, you know, a lot of good memories of just being in the front yard. Whether it's with my dad, my grandparents, my friends, wherever, going to the park. I feel like, you know, when I was growing up, going down to the park was like a big deal. There would be like, you know, 20 to 30 guys down there, and, you know, that was kind of where, like, you know, you really had to like show that you could play, because if you're playing with like the older guys, like,
not getting on the run,
you're gonna hear about it, or you're not playing, or you're gonna get yelled at like for you know, doing the wrong thing. So just love the competition of it all. My stepdad actually was really big into basketball, and so I do remember like one of the first times I was really into basketball was he would play like on these like Tuesday night runs with like his friends, and they were probably all, you know, in their 30s or almost 40s or whatever at that time. But I always wanted to like play. I thought they were like so good, and like I usually just went and like shot around in between games. And there was one game like they let me play, and like the first game that I ever played, I just like took a bow right to the face. And I remember I went home with like a black eye. My mom was like, "What the heck happened?" But I like thought it was the coolest thing ever. You know that?
No, those mentally beat the shit out of you. That's like one of the biggest things I think kids nowadays are missing, is playing with like 40-year-olds and getting beat up. Because I had that experience too in like grade 9 when I played in the men's league, and I just got ruined by this 69-year-old dude named Pete, and he hit me with a bow, and I was like, "That's got to be a foul." And they just kept playing.
Pete just
And I was like, "That's got to be a foul." They just kept playing.
Right.
I was like, "Oh, okay,
they don't care.
This is what this is now."
My uncle used to rent the local high school gym, and all of his boys, and like my uncle like 6'2", my dad's 6'4", all of his boys are tall, and I was in like grade 4, and I was playing like, I mean, for a 4th grader, very high level basketball, but obviously it's nothing compared to playing against 6'4", 40-year-olds.
And my uncle, no foul call.
No, my uncle's also, he didn't play in college, but he 100% could have. He's a dog.
Yeah,
like he's a dog. Like in my league this summer, a couple times when we needed a sub, almost like subbed him, and he's like turning 50.
And he can still hoop.
He could
still play.
He could really hoop. Like and I would start going there in grade 4, and would just, I'd have a couple nice buckets, but I would just get like just killed, just like bullied. And then as progressively got older and older and older, I ended up like becoming the best player there.
That's a really good feeling. Probably one of the better feelings is when you get to the point in the men's league where like they're no longer competing with you, and you sort of surpass them as like this passing on of the crown. It's like he just can't play with us anymore.
I was there for a long time. I was probably going. It was like Monday nights. I'd go from grade 4 to like 10th grade, I think, before I went to the States. But then most recently, my uncle told me to come back, and I had some conflict, so I couldn't. But I was gonna go and just start dunking and like really show them what's up now.
Yeah,
I was looking forward to that. But how do you parallel your love for basketball, even though because you obviously took that hiatus from basketball when you went to college, and then you are now obviously in a athletics career. So how do you kind of what I guess started that? What was that spark?
I think it was just, when I did go to school, I was still playing intramurals. I was still playing, like, basketball as much as I could. Obviously, I was still, like, loving sports. But then I ended up actually transferring back home to, like, my home college. Which was MCLA, which is in North Adams, Mass.
And you started off?
I was at Marist College, which is a school in Poughkeepsie, New York. And they have Division I basketball, so obviously it wasn't. I didn't have anything to do with basketball there. But no, when I came back, my best friend, his dad was my coach when I first started playing basketball, like on like the all-star travel team is what they called it. So he was my 5th and 6th grade all-star coach, and his son is one of my best friends to this day. And so he was actually still coaching 5th and 6th grade all-star basketball. And so I actually just kind of got into the youth leagues. My stepdad was coaching like a house league team. Like I said, this guy who became my mentor, Jim Shaker, he was coaching the 5th and 6th grade all-star team. So I just wanted to be like back around the game. I enjoyed, the coaching aspect, the competitive aspect. And then I ended up actually getting like an injury as I was playing. I dislocated my shoulder a bunch of times. And so I wanted to stay around the game. I kind of like stopped playing as much because like every time I would play, I would pop out. And so then, I just decided like, hey, like I wanted to do this coaching thing. And I didn't really know that I wanted to do it as a career in the beginning. Like I got a regular job once I finally graduated college. Like I was working a 9 to 5.
What were you doing?
So I was working at Williams College, which is actually like right next to where I grew up, and that's kind of
Duncan
like,
Robinson went, right?
Yeah, exactly. So they're kind of like almost like a Duke of D3 when it comes to. They're one of the best Division III colleges in the country as far as like liberal arts goes and everything, and so very prestigious school. So I was working there, and I actually just took this job it was a campus recycling coordinator. Okay. So it was a good job because of like the benefits and everything like that, working at that college and everything. And basically my job was to try to like get more people to recycle on campus. And then half of my day was also going around picking up cardboard boxes and bottles and cans and everything. And I actually really only took the job is because it was a 5:30 to 2 was my schedule every day. And so I wanted to be the head JV coach at my local high school, and the only time that we could practice was right after school. So we had to start practice right around 2:45 to 3. And so we get an hour and a half. So like one of the biggest reasons that I wanted that time frame was so every day I could get out and be the coach at the local high school. So
did you regret not playing college basketball or not giving it a shot?
I feel like I did regret it in the beginning when I started to get serious about coaching because I thought I wasn't going to be able to like be in the position I am now as like a head coach or to really like go on in the profession, because I was like, obviously once you first start coaching and you didn't play college basketball, like obviously you can feel like self-conscious about it a little bit and everything, and obviously you want like to gain the respect of the players, and obviously some players may not respect you as much if they don't think that you had like the game that as good as they want you to have. But obviously over time I realized that like to get respect you have to give respect. So I always gained the respect of the players because they knew that I was prepared and that I knew what I was talking about, whether or not like I could do it as well as they could. I had fully prepared, and I was putting them in a position to improve. And then once they see that what you're showing them is improving their game, then obviously they're going to respect you and want to continue to learn from you because they know that you're making a positive impact on them.
We just talked about this. I don't remember which podcast it was, but how like the dynamic of being a coach, and if you didn't play and your players can't respect you in that way, then the other ways that you can earn respect. Because I think
it was Connor's podcast that we just.
It was either Connor's or Sean's, one of the recent ones. But it's so important. Like obviously the respect piece is so important in the player-coach dynamic, and then also another thing that you have going the opposite direction is also a young coach. So being a young coach, you didn't play basketball in college. The team very much respects you. So what are the things that you are consciously doing to kind of establish that and in the gym while we're practicing.
Yeah, no, I think it's just like it's about people. It's about, obviously, like our core values are about relationships. So I think at the end of the day, like to get respect, you have to give respect. A lot of times it's like, oh, if you think you're older, you just deserve the respect from somebody. But it's like if you show somebody that you care about them, if you show somebody respect, like they're going to respect you back. So I think for me, it's about making, great relationships, which comes back to, trust, honesty, good communication. So I think like at the end of the day, if like what I'm, telling you guys, is coming from a place of caring and wanting the best for you, then obviously that's going to build a level of respect because you know that, I have your best interest in mind. And that's, I think, where, most of the players that I've ever worked with, like, respect me because I also respect them
for sure
as people and as human beings, not just as, athletes that put the ball in the hoop. You know 100%. What I mean? Like, I understand you guys have other interests, you have other challenges that you face in life. So I think those are the things that people really like in the end is, hey, we're all people. We all make mistakes. I mean, like I said, as much as I know about basketball, like, I'm humble and ready to learn, as much as I can from you guys, too.
Another thing that kind of bounces off of that before you get into what you're going to say next, Chris, is yesterday, me and Adam were walking to the calf, and we were both exhausted. We ran a lot in practice yesterday, and we were just talking about how, like, the way that you, like, at first, we were bullshitting in the 3-man 2-ball shooting. Everyone on the line, we ran, like, 28, whatever lengths it was, of the 8 and then the 6. And we were just kind of talking about how, like, you do it in a way that, like, we know it's in our best interest. Like, for example, in previous years or in previous programs, it's just like, fuck you guys, you're bullshitting down the fucking line. And then it's like, just fucking, that's like, oh, fuck this, like, whatever. But the way you're on the line, we're all lined up, and then you give us this, basically explain, like, how we do anything is how we do everything. And then with that communication, now we are running hard, and we're like, you know what, we deserve to run. Let's get this shit done, and let's move on, type of thing. Just to a testament to that respect and that accountability.
We got to start a challenge where we try not to make a coach hack.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything.
Everyone knows you're talking about.
No, I was saying.
We had an old coach that was really authoritarian in that sense, and he would yell at us and stuff. But I was going to kind of go into that too, because another thing that coach from Madai in Buffalo was really good at was building a connection with his players. And, like, that's probably the most personable coach I've ever played for. Like, he knew everything about us. He knew my parents. He knew everything. Like, most people don't know my parents. My parents don't even have phones, so I don't even know how he knew them, to be honest. But, like, he knew them.
Somehow he knew them.
Yeah, and, like, he was just so personable. So, like, did you struggle with that early on in your coaching career, trying to make that connection with those players?
I think, in the beginning, like, as far as making connections with the players, like, the way that I would make connections in the beginning with, like, anybody was I wanted to get to know them better, especially because I think, like you're talking about, like, once you know somebody and, I'm a big person of, like, know your why. Yeah. So if you're a player and I don't know why you love basketball, I don't know why you do what you do, then it's going to be hard for me to motivate you, properly. So I think that's something that, I want to do with this team that we have here. Obviously, we're kind of, like, finishing up the preseason, but I have, like, this sheet that I've already, like, built up. That I've had for a little while that I like to, like, go through with each player, and so we'll have, like, some individual meetings. But yeah, no, I think it's like, at the end of the day, like, you want to know what the person's like. Some people, like you said, maybe they like getting, like, yelled at a lot. They want to get pissed off, and so they play better that way. So maybe I need to, like, be, that type of person towards them. But then there might be somebody that, like, if I do that to, they might, like, curl up in a ball and not be well. That right. So, like, I don't want to do something just because it's like, oh, I'm the coach, I'm supposed to, like, rip you. You know what I mean? I want to do what's going to get the most, like I said, out of you. That's my role, is to get the most out of every guy. So obviously I want to do that to the right, extent that's going to get the best results.
That's funny you say that with the why too, because that coach also we had these things, we had bricks that we got at the beginning of the year, and he would regularly make us run with the bricks in our hands, which was kind of insane. But on the bricks, at the beginning of the year, there was two things we had. We had a poker chip.
Don't give him ideas, bro.
Well, there was two things he did, which I thought were really cool. He had a poker chip that he gave every single player on the team, and it was the all-in chip. And at the beginning of every practice, you had to put it in the jar, and if you lost the chip, we were running for the entire.
No one lost that chip.
Don't lose ever.
Yeah. But then also, just symbolize, like, you put the chip in, you're all in.
He had those bricks, and he gave us these two Home Depot bricks at the beginning of the year, and you had to write all over the bricks why you wanted to play college basketball. And, like, so we would be running with the bricks, and you're looking at, like, my grandma, and you're like, I really want to not do this, but then you just have to keep going.
Right.
But yeah,
I love that. Those are great ideas. I love that. I might have to think about, trying to make my own, like, style of that. But no, I think that's huge because, again, why you want to be there. Like, a lot of guys say they want to win. A lot of guys say, a lot of different things, but I think it comes back to that whole, like, actions over words and everything. But yeah, no, remembering why you're there, I think that goes a long way. Like you said, I mean, if you're playing for, someone like your grandmother or one of your family members, like, you want to make them proud. You want to, do it the right way.
I think if I didn't ask this, we'd be robbing the audience of like a crucial thing about Coach Pish. What's your why? Why do you move across, or you were in Nebraska? Why'd you move out to Nebraska, move back here, uproot your life for basketball to coach? Like, what is your why of doing what you do?
I think just my why is legit. Just like I want to live a life that like I love. You know what I mean? I think I've learned like, my grandparents like are a huge part of my family. And so like seeing my grandparents and like what their life has been like, obviously what they did to, give me the life that I have, but also understanding that like life is short and life is precious. Obviously something that we kind of learned through one of our players recently and stuff. But obviously, like they've had friends that like talk about, they worked their whole life to get to retirement, and then they might have retired, and then like a couple years after retiring, like this one couple they knew, they bought like a really sweet like camper, like RV. And then, like, her husband actually died, like, a couple weeks later from, like, a heart attack. And then, like, she just had to sell the whole RV. And, like, they were planning this whole special, like, thing in your retirement. And then they never got to do it. And I just feel like, I don't want to, like, waste my life, like, hating going to my job every day. I want to, like, enjoy the life that I'm living. So, obviously, if you can have a career that you love, like, you don't feel like you're working. And then, obviously, you're taking advantage of every day. So, that's what I want to do. I love basketball, I love competing. Obviously, I love the relationships that I get to build with you guys. And so, I was like, man, if I could do this as a job, that'd be a pretty sweet life. Like, I'm happy every day I go to work. There's not, I never have that, like, Sunday scaries or whatever, like, I'm never worried about going to work the next day. I'm always excited and looking forward to it.
So, and then talk about just a little bit about the Elms coaching job, why you kind of wanted to come here, interview process maybe, and all that type of stuff. Like how you ended up here.
Yeah, so I mean, I knew of Elms for a long time because my aunt actually works here. She works in like educational technology. She's in charge of a bunch of stuff that has to do with
right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
A bunch of stuff that has to do with Moodle or whatever. Do you guys use Moodle or like there's a bunch of different ones? I thought it was Moodle, but so she's in charge of that. But she went here, graduated here, and then started working here right after she graduated, I think, in admissions and kind of worked her way through. So she's been working here, I think, for close to 25, 30 years. So, I came to her graduation and everything back when she graduated when I was a young kid. So I've known of Elms. I used to come in the summers, visit my uncle and aunt, go to Six Flags with them and everything like that. So I've always known of Elms. I heard that the job was coming open. I wanted to be closer to home. My family lives up in the Berkshires and North Adams there, so it's only like an hour and a half away from here. Obviously, being in Nebraska was tough because I only was able to go home like once in a while, very, very rarely. Yeah. So one part was being closer to family, being closer to friends, and then I wanted to have my own opportunity to run my own program. Obviously, each year only a certain amount of schools open up. So the ones that I was looking at, I wanted to be in certain proximity to home.
What other schools were you looking at? Sorry to cut you off.
Well, the other ones that had been opening up in the area were a couple in Maine. There was one in Buffalo, New York. I'm trying to think which other ones I had applied for now. It's funny to like go back and think of it, but it was definitely like I said, there was one in Maine, there was one in New York, there was one in Hartwick.
Yeah, Hartwick.
If you've heard of Hartwick, yeah. Buffalo State.
We have a teammate, a Medai teammate. That's not Hartwick, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was also like interviewing for an assistant job at Williams, actually, which was like a job that I was pretty excited about. But that process kind of happened after this one was already through. So I was open to coming back to the East Coast and being an assistant still, but I wanted to be at a high-level school similar to Nebraska Wesleyan, and Williams was kind of a dream job for me just because it was where I grew up, and obviously they're an extremely good program. But I also do like the small school atmosphere. So, one of the things for me was like, obviously I wanted to go into a place that I could, build the program myself, take over and do things the way that I was thinking was going to be the best to build some success here and put my own like twist on it. And then, like I said, I have been at some smaller schools. I was at Elmira College, which you guys obviously know. You guys played against them and everything. Very similar. I would like they're EC, we're EC, Elms, Elmira. It's pretty similar. But I had a great experience there. Like very tight knit, like athletic department. I like the tight knit community. I think like when students have people around that are there supporting you guys and helping you guys to reach your goals, like you don't get lost in the shuffle. And I think like in the end, even though maybe it's not that typical like, oh, like I want to go to this huge school with all this stuff. Sometimes in the end, afterwards, when you're in more of a community like an Elm size and these smaller schools, I think you can get more out of it from the relationships that you build because they're a little bit deeper, a little bit. You get your hands into things a little bit deeper than you were with other places.
I have like 100 jobs on campus right now. I feel a little overwhelmed.
It's overwhelming, but at the end of the day, like,
going on.
those are going to be things that you can put on your resume.
Tons of stuff.
It goes a long way. So
you brought up building a team. When you come into a new program, what are your priorities and what are you trying to build and how? Like, what are you looking to prioritize when you first come into this brand new program, new players, new everything? What are you trying to do?
I mean, I think like it's the like buzzword is like the culture word. You know, I have one coach of mine that I used to work for that he didn't really like the culture word, and I kind of see why now because I think that, and this is I think what he was like inferring, but I also heard Brad Stevens mention it once, is that culture is the people that are in your program. Like at the end of the day, like culture is about like your standards, your values, like the things that you think are important. And so obviously while you're running your program, you can try to instill these things into your players and everything, but at the same time, like you kind of need people that have that like will, that desire, that passion inside of them. You know what I mean? Like if you don't love the game, like it's going to be hard to like teach you to be all about it once you get to college. You know what I mean? If you don't have that will to win, if you're not trying to become more mentally tough, if you're not trying to how we do everything is how we do anything type of attitude of like if you're not trying to be the best podcaster, the best chess player, the best dishwasher, the best laundry guy, like I'm trying to, you know what I mean? Like those are the type of people you want to be around because those are the people that end up being successful. So I think we're trying to like instill those values into everybody, and you're trying to kind of show that, hey, like this is how we're going to do things. And, you know, nobody's bigger than the program. I think that's something I learned a long time ago in my high school from my coach. Is that, again, like the program was here a long time before any of us were even on this earth, and this program will be still going on when all of us are gone. So I think, like, you know, it's about figuring out what the values, the standards, and you know, what we want this program to be about, and then it's about whether or not you want to uphold those, and then you get to have the privilege of being a part of it. So I think for me, it's just to keep a very high standard set here so that we get the right people. And then obviously as we continue to be, you know, more successful on the court, we're going to draw even more talent, and we're going to draw the right type of people in, and we're only going to let the right type of people in. So obviously in the beginning, it's about building the culture, building the standard, and setting those values up for the program. But obviously we gotta have a good product out on the court. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like people want to be a part of a winning culture or a team that wins. So obviously we got to do the right things out in the court too. So that's that other side of it, is you want to get like the people relationship and standard part going right, but you also have to have like a really good plan and be able to implement it on the court so that we can obviously go out there and compete.
There's something I've noticed about really good programs, and this could be wrong, but it's something I've kind of picked up on this from you and also our coach from Buffalo, is like good programs are really easy, not easy, but they're easier to keep going than they are to start from the beginning. So it's like with Coach Hack, the year before we got there, they had just won the
AMCC. Was it AMCC?
The AMCC championship. So like, and then they lost a bunch of guys. So like he kind of had these core pieces that he was trying to build around and move the culture around. But like with the good programs, I've noticed it's a lot easier to keep those going and just keep adding pieces to the culture that's already there than try to start it up from the ground. Yeah.
No, I mean, it almost reminds me of that whole thing. I don't know if you guys are into football or whatever. I know in Canada you got your own league up there and everything.
But, I don't even watch that, to be honest with you. But
I'm just playing. But no, like with the Patriots, when the Patriots were winning all the time, obviously they're like the top tier dynasty with Coach Belichick and Tom Brady and everything, and they always talked about the Patriot way. And it was just about how, like, once you have people in your program and in your team that do things a certain way and they don't let their standard down for anything, it's so much easier to bring other people in, because like if they don't do what they're supposed to be doing, like they're not going to make it. Because again, it's like goes back to that whole like a player-led team goes a lot farther than a coach-led team. Like obviously I'm on you guys all the time, like telling you all this stuff, harping on stuff. But, you know, once you got players in the locker room saying, like, this is not how we do things, like, you can't be late, you have to show up to this, like, this is how we act and behave in public, like, this is how we act and behave at practice, these are the things that we're focused on, like, it's way easier for the program to reach those goals that they want to reach and stay in that type of, like you said, stay in that lane where they're, like, continuing to be successful and have that respected it's like becomes traditions to just be good, you know what I mean? Like, for sure. So I think that's why it's so much easier. And then when you come in, like you said, there's like people are all over the place. Some people do things this way, other people do things that way, and so you're kind of fighting this old battle of like old habits. You're trying to break, you know, you can't teach an old dog new tricks type thing. Like you can, but it's going to take a lot longer than if you have a puppy dog. It knows what to do, and then it starts helping you teach everybody else.
So for the first recruiting class of 2025, 2026, what type of things are you looking forward to add to the culture that we're building right now? If you already know, because obviously we're only 6 days into the season. But I see obviously there's been some recruits around and stuff. And so, what type of things are you looking to on the court and off the court things?
I mean, I think, obviously the number one thing, it's 1A and 1B. Like, obviously we want to add more talented basketball players. So I think we want to add more size. We want to add talented players. But we want to add, like I said, the right people that also want to be a part of Elms. Like, that's the other thing, too, is, like, just because you get, like, this talented player, but if they don't want to be a part of Elms basketball and don't, like, respect what we're doing, then they're going to come in, maybe have an ego, maybe think they're better than what this is. Like, it's nice to have guys that are, like, excited about the situation that they're going into, maybe understand the position that we're in, the battles, the challenges that we're facing, and, like, they want to be a part of what we're building versus come in and just do whatever they want, and they don't understand the challenges that they're going to be facing. So I think bringing in the right people, I like to, talk to their coaches, talk to their AAU coaches, obviously bring them to campus, walk around with them, hang out with them, see how they interact with their parents, see how they interact just walking around and everything, see how our conversations go, and try to dissect a little bit more of, like, what type of person are they? Because, again, like, what makes them tick? What's their why do they love basketball, those types of things. It's the same stuff that we've kind of been talking about. But if you don't bring in that person that has the will to win and has that passion and everything, like, you're not going to be able to change, somebody that's, an entitled, arrogant person that's going to come
100%.
in and be a cancer to the team. Like,
100%.
It doesn't matter how good they are, they're probably going to bring the whole thing down, even though they're talented.
So would you say you lean more towards freshmen than transfers in that aspect? Because it's like kind of a clean slate. Like they've never touched college basketball. They don't really know what it looks like to have a culture and that kind of stuff. They do because of high school, but more so in like the college level aspect. They don't.
More moldable.
So, would you say they're more moldable to get a freshman than it is to get a transfer?
I think they're more moldable because obviously you're going to get 4 years out of them if they stay. So you have a longer time to mold them, I guess. Hopefully, it is a clean slate where they're respecting college basketball and they want to come in and do the right things. But at the same time, like, kids can get horrible habits from high school. Like, you can bring in a kid from high school that has horrible habits and just doesn't fit. Thinks they should have got a scholarship or they should have this or should have that. Whereas, like, I think at the same time with JUCOs, like, maybe you have a kid that's at JUCO that he never got a chance. He tried to go to some places. He was overlooked. Then he had to grind for everything he got. Maybe he's a little older, had to work on the side, you know what I mean, type of thing. And now he has that hungry mentality of, like, hey, I just want my opportunity. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. So I think it's one of those, like,
for sure,
every case is different. I don't lean towards a certain, avenue to get the players. I think having a little bit of everything. So say, like, I was trying to bring in 6 players, like, it'd be nice to have, like, 2 to 3 of them be freshmen, and then maybe 3 of them or 2 of them are transfers, maybe from JUCO, or maybe one of them comes from, like, a prep school, or maybe they're a transfer from another D3 and they're going to be, like, a sophomore or something like that. I think any way that you go, it's more of just about who the person is, like, individually then versus, like, where they came from and their age.
Have you had to do anything in your career like you had to do with the tryouts coming here? When you walked into obviously a team of a lot of returning guys, plus classic Coach Southall fashion, just recruits a bunch of guys and then kind of have tryouts every year. And I feel like a lot of different programs, especially the higher end ones, you obviously would not have that. And it's kind of like case by case, and you're building that culture and you're adding just for fit, as opposed to bringing in a big pool of guys and then choosing the best guys every year. So have you had to do anything like that? And, like, what was kind of that like?
So, the only other time that I ever was, like, a part of a team that had to make cuts was when I did coach the JV team at the high school level. Like, there was, like, tryouts for the team, and I did have to make some cuts, which obviously was not fun. And that was just because, like, in high school, obviously anybody can kind of come out for the team in the beginning of the year. And then when the head coach at Elmira that year that I was there, which I don't know if it must have been my first year that you guys were there. I'm trying to think.
2022 was when we were at Medaille.
We're at Medaille.
I think, right? Am I wrong?
I think that's right.
And then they closed the year after?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it had to be. So that year, the head coach there, his name's Casey McGraw. I was, fortunate to come in as his assistant. And that first year, we didn't even have, like, I think we only had, like, 13 guys or, like, 12 guys. So we didn't have to make any cuts. But we did bring in a large freshman class that following season. And so that year there was a large amount of guys that were coming back that wanted to be on the team, and then the freshmen. Obviously, all the freshmen were guaranteed their spot because we recruited them to come to the school and play for us. So we did have to make a few cuts of a few guys that were on the team that year, and so obviously it was a difficult decision to have to get rid of some of the returning players that were committed to the team, and but at the end of the day, like, it's tough. You have to make hard decisions. That's why you're in the position that you are. And, again, like we said, like college basketball, like it's definitely, it's hard. It's not easy. The amount of like high school players, like, that make it to this level is like what little, right. It's literally like this minuscule number. So it's just kind of part of what happens, which is, like I said, unfortunate. You don't want to tell anybody that they can't play the game they love. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you have to
do what you gotta do.
Be in that position, and you just have to make some tough decisions, and hopefully they can understand and respect the position that you're in and that you had to make a choice.
Looking at the current Elms roster that you have in front of you, what do you think are some strengths that they have, and then what are some things you think they need to work on in order to get to this really winning culture that we need? Yeah.
I mean, I think we have like a wide range of talented players with a bunch of guys that have like a specific skill or thing that they bring to the table that they do really well at. Like some guys are like really, really good rebounders, other guys really, really good shooters, some really good attackers, some really good athletes, you know what I mean? Like whatever skill we want to bring up. I think there's a bunch of different guys that bring, a specific skill to the table. So I think we have that going for us. Obviously we want to put them in position so that we can use those strengths that these guys have, get them some open looks for three, and let them see a couple of them go in so they can keep knocking down a couple more and everything. Hopefully this guy. And so, but we have other guys that I think can shoot and knock down some shots when they're open, some guys that we can post up, et cetera. So I think that's exciting, trying to find spots for them to do what they do best. And I do think we like have an emotional group of guys that, are excited and they want to win. They want to compete. They're excited to come to practice. They're excited to be good. They can, there's a new coach. Obviously, there's always going to be that excitement. The other side of it is like, everybody's excited to come and play college basketball. Everybody's running. Everybody's in the weight room. Everybody's going to practice every day. Like, it's more about, like we said, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. Like, it's how you come to practice. It's the detail and focus that you put into learning what you're supposed to be doing. It's how hard you push yourself. Like I tell the guys, like, I don't know if you're going as hard as you possibly can. Only you know that. So, when we do drills that they don't think are, like, exciting or fun or whatever, or they're not as competitive as they would want, like, there's a reason behind everything that we're doing. Are they getting something out of it? You know what I mean? So I think right now our biggest challenge is like coming every day and like getting better and, making sure that, it's not what we're doing, it's how we're doing it. And then the other side would just be like the emotional side of like, it's fun to do well, but like at the end of the day, like you want to be ahead when the score, like the clock goes off at the end of the game. So like not getting too high, not getting too low. I think that's that mental toughness side. That's that, being focused on, at the end, we want to celebrate in the locker room. We don't want to just celebrate because we knocked down a 3 in the game. Like, it's great, it's fun, but act like you've been there a little bit because, again, it's fun to celebrate during the game, but you want to be celebrating in the locker room at the end. So I think that's just part of, like, maturing and becoming more focused on the overall goal as you're playing and becoming, older as a basketball player and getting that experience.
You brought up the details there. Where does that come from? Like the focus on the little details, things like the small timing and the tempo and all that stuff. Where did you, another coach to tell you that, or something you noticed over time that these little details seem to make a big difference in games, or where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, definitely from a lot of the coaches that I've worked for and everything. I've obviously had a lot of great mentors and great head coaches that I've worked for, and those guys have worked for other great coaches. So being able to work, like I said, for Coach Dale Wellman, Coach Mark Smith, Coach Colpo, all the other coaches that I've worked for too. Like, I've learned so much from every coach that I've been with. But at the end of the day, like I said, if I'm going to say that, like, it's not what you do, it's how you do it, then it's about the details. So, like, everybody can cut to the basket, but, like, how many people set up their cut right, with the right footwork, with the right angles. Everybody runs, like, a certain type of offense or a pick and roll. Like, why do some pick and rolls work better than others? It's because of how tight you come off the screen, how well you set the screen, where you roll, where you dive. Can you make a pocket pass? You know what I mean? Can you read the defense coming off of it? Everything's about the little details, because really that, in the end of the day, I know you're like a big guy into like lifting and stuff, right? if you just go in and I'm just doing like barbell curls and my back's like flailing all over the place and I'm like, well, dude, I'm curling like this much weight, am I going to get as much out of it as like when I watch you and you're like focused in on the reps, doing the right thing, time under tension, whatever type of things that you like to focus on.
That's the best thing I've ever heard a coach say in my entire life. You just said time under tension.
Time under tension.
That's crazy.
Don't you do those strength and conditioning for the girls team?
Yeah, I've been helping out with them a little bit and everything, and I've always been into working out and everything, and so I've done a lot of research and reading into all that type of stuff, and obviously I've worked with some different teams, so I understand, like, again, like anything that you're talking about that you're doing, obviously it's about the details. Like, we could come in and you could not have like all this nice setup for the podcast, and we could just be talking on like cell phones. It'd be all like crackly and everything. And you could be like,
him, like when this stuff isn't working right or we have malfunctions, let's just do it on the phone. It's like, as a perfectionist, I just can't let it happen. I'd rather have no podcast than have a shitty podcast.
Right. When people go and listen to podcasts, like they don't want to hear like all the changing levels of stuff and the crackling and stuff in the background and stuff, like the details with anything we go through. Obviously, that's what the greats are doing.
There's a podcast I listen to by this guy called Alex Ramosi. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a big business guy, and he has a saying, no silver bullets, only 100 golden BBs, where it's like 100 details make something perfect, not one thing that changes the whole project.
Yeah.
So it's like over time in businesses, the reason you see like a product decline is because, well, they're just checking boxes and stuff, and then there's not this magic that it once had. It's because there's not a bunch of perfection, those little details being put into this thing that makes this one big bouquet of perfection.
Yeah, no, I like that. 1,000. What was it? 100 golden
BBs, not one silver bullet.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's another great analogy for it. But no matter what area of life you're talking about, like detail-oriented people, like those are the people that find success. And yeah, those little things. The little things are the big things. Like in the end of the day.
You're reading the list. I was going to let you rock off.
I was in the middle of reading the list. I don't know. I kind of want to talk about the pocket. About the slot.
Go to the pocket.
So, which kind of also goes.
Are you going to bring up Trailer Park Boys, or are you just going to go right into it?
I was going to let you talk about that. Okay. But it also kind of goes back to the little things. So, I'd say like right before tryouts and during tryouts, something that I was really succeeding in was getting into this kind of zone where me and Chris are calling it the pocket or calling it the slot. It's like a place of like, we call it medium consciousness. So it's like I'm going out, I'm playing, I'm not thinking, is my elbow too in? I'm not thinking, am I balanced, am I whatever? Mm-hmm. But I'm just conscious enough to do the things that I know are important for me to make shots. And that, for me personally, is I need to be aiming at the back of the rim. If I'm aiming at the back, if I can see the back of the rim, I feel like there's a high percentage chance that the shot's going to go in.
Yep.
And I feel like, and that's something that I've been doing for a while, since I was working out with Coach Southall last year, and we were doing a lot of like different game reps to kind of help transition my shot to become game ready and quick and all these different types of things that'll hopefully help me succeed on the court this year and going forward. Mm-hmm. And I feel like during tryouts and in the last couple of runs, I was really in a good spot of that medium, we call it the pocket, that medium consciousness, where I was like, just really focused on that. Just want to know what you think about it. It's just something that we jot down, just like a concept.
Do you want to explain where the pocket comes from, like the saying, the pocket?
Oh, you can explain it.
Do you ever watch Trailer Park Boys?
I've heard of it. I don't think I ever really watched it.
Basically, there's this guy. What's the guy's name on it?
I never watched it.
Oh, well, there's a dude on it who's like a raging alcoholic. And one episode, he gets a breathalyzer, and he's breathalyzing himself to try and see if he can hit this thing called the slot, where he's drunk enough to enjoy what he's doing, but he's conscious enough to not be an idiot.
Right, okay,
so it's like,
I've seen
the
this.
slot, we turned it into the pocket.
It's like he's like trying to be in the perfect
zone. So it's like 1.2 is the slot, where he's drunk enough to enjoy it, but conscious enough not to be an idiot. And that's kind of where that comes from.
Another thing I can kind of parallel to is, so in the summer, my uncle has like a house on the lake on Lake Simcoe.
Okay.
And they have a boat where we go surfing.
Yeah.
And there's like this specific pocket where when you throw the rope, do you know anything about wake surfing or anything like that?
I mean, I've seen it, but I don't know.
Well, when you throw the rope, usually you go backwards or forwards. And so if you put too much pressure on your forward foot, you're going to go right forward, right smash into the boat. And it's not going to be good. My uncle's going to be very mad because he spent a lot of money on that boat.
Exactly.
But if you go too much on the brake, which is the back foot, you're gonna go out of the wake, and then you're gonna fall. And then,
I have to get back up.
So there's that, and it's as you get better, the slot becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. But like when always my first or second surf of the summer, like right when I'm just getting back into it, because obviously I don't do it during the year, the slot feels so small, and it's like the most minuscule detail, the most minuscule forward motion. I'm going right to the boat, and then I have to slam on the brake, and then I end up in the water.
Gotcha.
Like that.
Yeah,
but
it's like a sweet spot.
Exactly.
It also comes in golf too, where you get the club in the slot, and if you get it in the slot, you can swing as hard as you want to, because then it's still going to be square when you hit the ball.
Is there a coaching parallel to the slot?
I mean, like while I'm coaching,
Just in
or
general.
just what my thoughts
While you're
are on
coaching,
this?
maybe it's something like you were talking about earlier. It's like you've built enough culture that
It's self-sustaining.
we did a shitty 104, and then Tays bring us in the middle, and he's like, "Yo, we gotta lock the fuck." Like you were saying, like we gotta lock in, like,
Okay.
and we're kind of self-governing now.
Okay.
Maybe that's something parallel. This is just sometimes we just
Yeah, no,
put,
this is just- we're just spitballing
We just
here,
put
yeah.
concepts
Yeah.
that we in our lives
Get
that we're
some
coming
ideas
through,
out
and
of
then
it.
we just like talk
Yeah.
about it and see if there's any parallels or anything like that.
I mean, I think for me, like with coaching, I don't think there's like a slot or sweet spot. Obviously, you can get your team into a really good spot where they have the right people and they're kind of like self-led and they know what to do. But you're still gonna have to tinker with it like day by day. Like there's gonna be days when you guys don't.
So it's
bring
more
it.
of a conscious. It's more of a conscious,
Like you're-
consistently conscious.
Yeah, you're consistently. But I think what that reminds me of, you guys should look into it. Is like there's a concept called flow.
Yeah.
And obviously that has to do with like if you're doing a task that's way too hard, it's a game that like you'll never win, you'll lose that like interest in it. But if you're also doing a task that's like way too easy to win, then you'll also check out on that. But like when you find that game that's like that perfect level of like it's just hard enough where like it's attainable, but you have to challenge yourself, but you're still finding success in it, like that's where you find yourself in that perfect like flow state of mind where like you know, you're able to like really be locked in on what you're doing. You're excited about it. You're focused on it. It's challenging you, but it's not out of reach. So I think maybe you're kind of finding yourself in that flow state.
We can move on.
I was going to say, you said self-governing thing. I was going to go into that a little bit. Is there a point where you've been coaching and you see the team that you're coaching sort of begin to self-govern and you can kind of take your foot off the gas?
I'm trying to think of like, I think there's times where like you start to see like the leaders like saying the right things, or you start to see the guys doing the right things as far as like showing up. But I think it's one of those things of like, it's kind of like I bring up about like with trust, like it takes so long to like build trust, but like you can lose it in like a half a second.
For sure.
I would just say like as much as like, yeah, things can be all going great. Like it's just like anything else, like something bad could be like, that could get lost in a second because now like overconfidence hits like, oh, we're doing everything coach has, we're all showing up, everything's good. And then maybe it goes back the other way.
So like stoking a fire in a hurricane, you just have to keep putting wood on it to make sure that it doesn't die.
Yeah, I think anything that you're trying to continue to have like, you know, reach excellence with, like you got to keep at it. I mean, again, I know you're the bodybuilder, so like you want to go with the muscle thing, but it's like you don't stay big just because like you did workouts for your whole year, you got your perfect physique, and then you decided to like take off a couple months. But like, you know, maybe you're doing a little bit of something, but you're not like locked in. Like if you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you got to keep training it. It's just like anything else. You got to keep maintaining what you have. So I think like as much as it's player driven and self-governed team, like I still have to make sure and be like instilling the right things in those players and reminding them like, hey, you can't like let down your guard just because you've been doing something well doesn't mean you can, you know, take a day off.
How focused and intense and like kind of going off the self-governing too was that Nebraska Wesleyan team that has had success year after year after year, and I know absolutely nothing about it, but I want to know just like what that atmosphere and that practice atmosphere was kind of like, and was it close to that kind of like everyone holding each other accountable and type of thing, everyone going hard 24/7 where you don't have to be on guys to you don't there's no go get on the line and let's refocus. Everyone's focused the whole time.
Yeah, like
Or if that's, or maybe they just had a ton of talent and they just like, I don't know.
No, I mean, I think like there still was a time when like Coach Wellman was like, what are we doing? Like we have to get in the line and run. But I can really only remember maybe one time that actually happened. Yeah, literally maybe one time. So realistically, like any time that like things weren't going well, you know, in the practice, like the players were like noticing that too. So it wasn't just like the coach had to notice, like everybody else noticed. They had that awareness of like, hey, this isn't good enough. Hey, we have to be better. But also that just like there's that level of expectation there that like you come to practice early, you're ready to go, like you're locked in, like we're not coaching effort. Like guys are going hard. They want to be the best.
We're not coaching effort. I like that.
Yeah, no coach wants
saying.
to coach effort. Obviously, you want to be coaching the X's and O's, all the details and things like that. You want to be teaching the players. So every day there, it was just like we're coming to work, doing what we needed to do, being focused on getting better every day, not being like, hey, why aren't you working hard today? Hey, why are you, you know, not doing this or doing that? The things that they could control, like we said, obviously control what you can control. Those guys controlled what they could control every day, which was their attitude and their effort. Like everybody doesn't want to go to practice every single day, but like they showed up, whether they're feeling bad or not. Focused in, made sure that they got better, like, you know, the whole 1% better every day. I feel like we got 1% better every day that we went to practice there. And Obviously, a big part of that is Coach Wellman and what he expects from the team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he holds those guys to an extremely high standard, and because of that, like, they're one of the best schools in the country. You know what I mean? Like, that's why we're able to go to the Elite Eight, is because, you know, how we did everything was, you know, the same. We always did things to the highest of their ability.
And then what type of things, so obviously you've been on good teams, means you've been with good players. And
Yeah.
what are some individual, maybe stories or individual experiences or just things that make special players special? Things that, like, and it could be the Division One, like the difference between the Division One player at St. Bonaventure, but I'm sure you also had some really good players at Nebraska Wesleyan and some other places as well. So what are those things that kind of make those great players great?
Yeah, I think the deciding factor is, like, they all have the one same thing, which is they have the physical ability and talent to be amazing. But my argument to everybody that I usually talk to is, like, I think there's other people out there that have the athleticism, passing, shooting, whatever, like, ability of a LeBron James. Like, there's other physical specimens out there that can do what he does, or whoever your favorite player is in the NBA, or the best player you think that's out there. There's other Jokic's out there. But, like, the difference between the greats and the other guys that can do it physically is in their mind. Like, it's how hard they work. Like, none of the greatest players I was ever around were just, like, a 3 to 5 practice guy. Like, those dudes were in getting up shots every single day. Like, when they're doing workouts, like, they're coming out drenched. Like, they're, you know, quality workouts, not just going in and just getting up shots just because, like, they're trying to get better at what they do. And then at practice, same thing. Like, they're coming and going hard as they possibly can every day at practice. Like, they're not wasting any possible second of time that they have to improve. And then, like, they're just competing as hard as they possibly can at all times. Like, they hate losing more than they love winning. So, you know, the difference for me with every, like, great player that I was ever around was just their mental makeup. Like, they were just, like, the most competitive, passionate, driven people that were, like, all about the details. You know, there's, like, a saying of, like, lazy people do a little bit of work and think they're doing, winning, and then, you know, winners do, you know, everything, and then they still think that they're not doing enough. And I feel like that's what it was like when I was around some of the great players. Like, at Nebraska Wesleyan, we had this player, Peter Lash. He's, you know, has scored, like, over 1,600 points. He's only as a junior, you know, and, you know, this dude was in the gym every single day. Like, you wouldn't see a harder worker than this guy. And then even at, like, the Division I level, like at St. Bonaventure, there was a few players there. This one kid, Kyle Lofton, he ended up going and playing overseas actually right now, but I just remember, like, this dude was just every night in the gym, no matter what. Like, coming back, getting up free throws if he was a little bit banged up, or just working really hard with the coaches extra, getting a manager to come in. He just had that mental makeup of, like, hey, he wanted to succeed.
Sure. There's a few things I heard you say at the practices that I watched, and there's a few things you do, and I kind of want to get the inside of your head for that. So why do you do halftimes during practices?
So I just, like, started doing that, like, obviously now that I'm my own head coach, it was just something that, like, I want to, like, use my practices a little bit more to emulate what, like, a game day is like, because I feel like, you know, everything you're doing is leading up to the game. You know what I mean? And so there's, like, one of the things I feel like almost every team that I've been around, even the greatest teams, we did it at Nebraska Wesleyan, sometimes it would happen to us too, is, like, you go into half, maybe you're beating a team really big. Obviously, it happens all the time when you're up big. But even when you're in, like, a tight game, like, you're in a tight game, maybe it's a 2-point, possession game. You go into half, you're talking about, like, the things that you did well. Like, so the coach really isn't ripping you because, like, you didn't, like, you don't need to be ripped. There's nothing to be ripped about, but you're, you know, fixing a little bit of this, fixing a little bit of that. Hey, we want to focus on this. Hey, we want to focus on that. You're getting a drink, you're kind of calming down. All of a sudden, like, you know, all of the energy and adrenaline drops. You come out, next thing you know, like, the team, like, you know, goes on a 12-0 run because you're not ready to go and you just lost the game. Like, you never come back from that. Like, you lost the game because of the first, you know, 4 minutes or 2 to 4 minutes after halftime. So I feel like I wanted to, like, have a time, and as practice goes on, it'll make more sense, but a time of, like, where, hey, almost like the guys let their guard down a little bit. They get, like, a halftime. They can shoot some free throws, get water, go see the trainer or whatever it is. But I want to see, like, how they respond right after we do that. Yeah. So that's kind of where, like, I came up with that.
I'm really glad Coach Hack didn't do that because I'm already going back and looking. Like, I would have been the kid to, like, relax, and then as soon as we go back out there, I had dead legs, and I would have fucked up the first, like, guarantee it. So, like, that's actually, that makes a lot of sense.
No, and I think it's, like, I've had multiple guys, like, complain to me while I was assistant about, like, say you're Max and you're a shooter, that's your like one of your main strengths of your game, and they'll be like, oh, well, like I'm cold. Well, listen, dude, if you don't start and you don't come in until 7 minutes into the game, you're sitting on the bench. This isn't soccer. You're not running up and down the sideline getting your body warmed up. Like, you don't get to go in another gym and shoot around until I sub you in.
That'd be sick.
That'd be kind of tough, but you don't get to do that, right? So it's like at the end of the day, like the best players, like when you have your opportunity, you better be ready. Whether you were chilling on the bench and like your body, oh, my body's cold. Well, if you don't make the shots and that's what you're supposed to be doing, and you came in and those were your opportunities, the excuses of like I got dead legs or like I'm cold doesn't really work for you. You know what I mean? Like when you get an open look and you're in a game, whatever the situation was, maybe you didn't play the whole game until the last 5 minutes because somebody got hurt. If you hit a couple big shots in that moment because you were ready for the moment, like that could change your whole season when it comes to all of a sudden now you're getting playing time.
100%.
So I think like I want guys to kind of like get out of these like, oh, like, it's that whole like excuse thing. Like, yeah, your legs are probably tired, but you got to go out and do it. You know
I like it. I'm big in like compartmentalizing. Like, so for example, like yesterday, I was exhausted. I wasn't feeling well. I actually, like, when I walked in the gym, I actually was like going through my head, like, I might actually have to tell coach I might need to sit out because I actually feel like I'm going to pass out.
Dang.
And
now
then
you had to run.
And then we started shooting, I missed my first couple of my shots. I'm like, I feel like shit. I'm going to just finish this drill and we'll see what happens. Yeah. Everyone on the fucking line. I'm like, oh, my fucking God. I'm not going to bitch out now.
I got to run.
Let me make these 28 or whatever, and then... So, and I'm like seeing stars as I'm shooting, shooting all over the place. And I'm like, let me just, and so the halftime gives me something to like compartmentalize to. Like, if I'm whatever, I'm tired. Let me make the halftime. Let me just make it halftime, and then after that, we'll get after that. I really like that. Yesterday,
I think that's a great.
The halftime was big for me because
great point.
Chug my electrolytes because I bring electrolytes to every practice and kind of revived me for that second half of practice.
No, I think that's a good way to think of it. I don't think I explained it to the guys that way, but I like that. It's like, maybe you use it as like, hey, like I just had a bad first half of practice. Like, hey, I have a whole nother half of practice. Like, let me have a good second half of practice. So I think it's going fine for now. Like, we'll see how it goes. Again, I'm not going to, like, say that, hey, I won't change it if I don't think it's working well. Like, obviously, maybe I'll make a mistake and it's not a good thing to do. But for now, we're rocking it. It's going to be, some days it's a little longer, some days it's a little shorter. Depends how much stuff I'm trying to cram into practice or whatever.
Something else I heard you say, and I picked this up immediately and wrote it down, was the worst thing you can do as a basketball player is not look to score. What do you mean by that?
Just because, like, we have some guys that will, like, drive to pass. Mm-hmm. And so, obviously, like, offensively, we're trying to draw someone else's defender. Like, it's that whole thing of, like, if I get you to guard me and somebody else to guard me, somebody's going to be open. So, obviously, anytime you're making a dribble drive or we get a pick and roll, like, the whole point of a lot of these actions in basketball is to, get multiple defenders stuck onto one guy. And so the only reason that somebody is probably going to give you, any of their attention is because you're going to go to score. You know what I mean? You drive to the basket to draw a defender to dump down or to drive and kick or whatever. So I think, like, especially in transition or when we're coming off different actions, like, if you don't come off of that with the intent to score and looking like you're going to score, then the defense doesn't have to respect, that you're attacking. And then obviously now you're not going to open up that next thing. Like, so I think it's just like guys need to be thinking score first. And then once you realize that you're stopped, obviously you also have to have that intelligence to, be able to stride stop or whatever and pivot and be able to make a pass out of it or just read what's happening. Obviously you get to that spot and now it's like, all right, what's the open guy? What's the right pass? So I think, first should be thinking score and the rest will, like, come after that.
Yeah, because I wrote that down through the lens of I kind of struggle with that as a player, like not being a threat and just not looking like I was there to attack the basket. And also a kid I coached in the summer that went to my high school, he was super passive on the court. And, like, they would kick it to him in the post and he'd be wide open and he would kick it out for a three. Yeah. And eventually the defense stops respecting you for that. So it's like that switch to be like, I'd rather see you take a bad shot aggressively than not take one at all. Exactly.
I mean, it's similar to, like, I always talk about, like, we need 4 guys, if not always you want 5 guys that can shoot the basketball, especially that's obviously what you see at the NBA level now. But it's like because defenses are so good now, like they're going to adjust to the threats. So like when you're not a threat, they just get to use your defender to help the other defenders even more. So again, like spacing is not about 5 guys standing around the outside. If we had 5 guys on the court, then none of them can make a 3 and they all stood on the outside, like we just stand in the paint and be like, yeah, shoot it up all you want. You know what I mean? Like
that's what happened last year.
It just, you know what I mean? Like it makes the other team have an easier job on defense. So if you're not looking to score, like I said, you're just getting them off the hook.
Chris has this question written down that kind of was going off what you were saying before. But what goes through your mind when you're going to sub in you're looking down the bench, what will go through your mind to like who you're subbing, when, and why?
I think it's a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is obviously like time and score or situation in the game, obviously. But obviously each coach like has a depth chart or knows like certain guys that are gonna spell other guys. So if you have a backup point guard and you're gonna take your point guard out and your point guard's super important to running the offense, then obviously you're probably gonna go towards subbing a guy for whoever's coming out. So if that person's tired or whatever. Obviously we don't want guys to like play too long where then they're not as effective because they're getting tired. So I think first off would obviously be just those positions. Who's their backup or who plays in a similar spot. Obviously if you have like a guy that's a rim protector and you need a big, like, unless you're going with a small lineup, like you might go with another.
Not subbing me in to play for Sam or something like that.
Right. Like for our team, like we don't have like, we have guys that play more towards the basket, but I think we have flexibility. Like we could go to a lineup where we have one of our more undersized, like 4 men or whatever, playing more of like that position, depending on who we're playing against, obviously. So it's always going to be dependent on the matchup, whoever we're playing and everything like that. And then, I think one of the biggest things for coaches is like, who do they trust? You know what I mean? It's about trust. Like, are you going to do what I'm asking you to do? Are you going to run the offense? Are you going to crash the boards? Are you going to get back? Like, all the things. Do you know what we're doing when I call this out? Do you know where you're supposed to be? Like, sometimes people think it's about, like, coaches, like, have something against you because maybe you're more talented. So you're more talented than him, but, like, you mess up the plays all the time. Like, I don't care how good you are. The coach wants a guy that he can trust that goes in and, like, runs the offense and does what's best for the team. Versus like, oh, well, yeah, he's, a little bit more talented when it comes to just like playing basketball on the pickup floor. You know what I mean? So
a lot of the kids nowadays in high school don't really understand that aspect of college basketball because I've taken some film from college games and showed those kids that I coached in high school, and they were like, well, why isn't this guy playing? Why isn't he playing? I was like, well, I'm going to assume because this guy's running the plays perfectly and the coach can just trust him to get the offense down, and this guy is a wild card. I'm going to throw him out there. He's going to go shoot a fast break 3 and then come back and not play defense. It's like there's so many little intricate things that go into you playing on the college basketball court that they just don't see and don't think about before they go play the college basketball.
Yeah, no, and I think that's like the thing that like guys, I was kind of thinking about that the other night when I was just like, guys are always worried about like how they can improve like individually, like like at the end of the year when you have meetings, it's like, hey, how can I get better so I can play more? And it's like, well, obviously you need to be a better shooter, you need to be a better ball handler, like be better at passing, be better at this and be better at that. Like those are all these things that individually you can improve on. But like it's a team sport. It's about 5 guys playing as one. You know what I mean? So like again, if somebody's better at the sport when it comes to like, just hooping, but the other person can run the offense better, we need as a team 5 guys that are running something that are all on the same page because obviously we're going to perform at a higher level when we all know that what we're doing, how we're supposed to be doing it, than just some guy that like once in a while can go off on his own and get a bucket. I mean, obviously there's definitely a place for that in basketball at the same time. I can't say I want like a guy that can just create for himself, but at the same time for a whole college basketball game, like more of it needs to be 5 guys working as one, whether it's defensively or offensively in transition. So having that trust that the player's going to be able to be in the right spot at the right time, like that goes a long way towards being successful and having success on the court than necessarily just being able to hoop.
I think that answers Connor's question.
What's Connor's question? Oh, yeah. One of the things we do on this podcast that I stole from another podcast is we have the last guest ask a question for the next guest. I
think that's cool.
And he jokingly said that his question was going to be, is Connor getting any playing time this year?
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that kind of answers his question there.
It's
but
like what you can do to get
another thing you said in practice, I'm kind of paraphrasing when I said this, but you said chemistry comes from predictability.
Yeah.
What do you, like, I tried to process that a lot, and I kind of understand it, but I want you to kind of elaborate on it.
Yeah, it's just like, you hear all the time like, oh, like, our team had good chemistry. We had good chemistry. But that's like,
what does that mean?
What exactly does that mean, or what are they talking about? And a lot of times it's like, comes from, oh, hey, like all of our guys are coming back from last year, or I grew up playing with all these guys. So it's more in the sense of if you're playing out on the court and you understand the strengths and weaknesses, the mindset of the guys that are on your team, you're going to be better able to react to what they might do in that situation. You know what I mean? Like, if a guy's a non-shooter or not a great ball handler, like, there's certain times when you're not going to want to get that person the ball. if this person's more aggressive and they're going to do this because that's what they always do, maybe you can get into the rebounding position that you need to, or maybe you can try to set them a screen or get them in the ball where they're going to be most effective. Or if this guy's a hothead and you can see that he's about to blow up, but you're able to go over and settle him down before anything happens. Chemistry to me is just, we all know, what each other's like. So now it's more predictable. And so now when we're playing out on the floor again, now we're not going to do something that's, a weakness, a pass to somebody that shouldn't have the ball in this spot because it's not their strength. Or again, obviously getting the ball to people when they're going to be able to exploit one of their strengths. So I think, to me, it's the whole point of us running the offense and all being on the same page to build that chemistry is you're going to know that this is what the cut is, or the coach told me to go here, the guy's going to be there. A lot of coaches teach that whole thing, if somebody drives baseline, the opposite side corner, someone needs to fill it for that Princeton corner pass. If you're driving really hard and you're about to get knocked out of bounds, some guys will even teach to almost jump out of bounds and make that pass. If Max doesn't slide down into that spot and I just throw it and it goes into the bench, then a lot of times the coach will be like, why didn't you get down there?
I'm always going to be in that spot.
He's going to be there. He's going to be there. I trust him. So to me, that's what chemistry is, because everybody kind of just, how do you have the chemistry? It's just you know each other. You guys have chemistry. Why? Because you've known each other forever. You know everything about each other probably. So it's easier for you guys to have chemistry on the pod or whatever you guys are doing.
Sure.
Because you know each other.
I have this written down as hobbies. This question for you: what are the hobbies to de-stress from yelling at these idiots? As we were going through, as we were making the notes yesterday for the podcast and thinking what I wanted to ask, I think a lot of, obviously, it's going to be a lot of principles, a lot of who Coach Pish is on the court.
Yeah.
So what is it you do off the court? Obviously,
there
are going to be some days where we lose some games. There will be some days where some bad practices, and we talk a lot about how it's important for us players to have hobbies and things to go to help dig you out of that hole and help you refocus and bring other aspects. Otherwise, if you have I know this better than anyone, being far from home, having a shit practice, go back to the room and you just sit in that chair until the next practice.
Thinking about it too much. Yeah.
So what do you do in your free time? You said now you're back at home, close to your family and stuff like that, to alleviate some of the stress from the day-to-day basketball.
I think for me, there's a bunch of different things that obviously I like to do. If it's more of just being at home, I definitely am a gamer a little bit, so I'll jump on and just play a game of FIFA against the computer or something like that, or a game of college football. Obviously, a lot of my friends are still big into gaming, so certain nights when I was living farther away, but even when I live here, I'll have a group of 4 to 5 guys that'll be on Xbox at night.
Fortnite squad going.
So we'll jump on. Maybe we'll be playing Call of Duty or something they play Madden League, or we'll play NHL, whatever that is, where we all have our own guy individually playing on the team. So
I'll
do
that in NHL.
Yeah,
there's a rec in NHL.
What's that?
Yeah, I didn't know that. There's a rec, the two.
Well, yeah, it's a club or something
I've never played hockey.
You get
That's
on
fine.
and
that's sick.
Yeah. So we do that a little bit. So I play some games. I'm big into fantasy sports. I play. They're just fun leagues. I'm in a fantasy hockey league with these random dudes. It's not for any money or anything like that. I just like to do it just because I like building a team, and it makes me watch more hockey. Sure. I do it for basketball too. I just do it because I like to try to build a team. It's the competitive side. When the weather's nice, I'm big on hiking. I like to be outdoors. I like to canoe camping. I used to do a lot of hiking and camping with my grandfather. So I'm pumped to be closer to Vermont. I grew up going up to Vermont a lot and doing a lot of outdoor stuff like that. So definitely going to be excited to do that. I play golf, so I'm definitely a big golf fan. I heard you getting into it. I think you told me that you're going to do golf. So I love golf, play with my friends, being in tournaments. But, out in Nebraska, I played a ton with the other assistants. So love golf, love the competitive side of that.
Are you good?
I'm not horrible or anything. I think, I'm probably a high 90s guy.
Okay. That's a lot better than me. That's a fairly above average golfer. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I did break 90 one time actually too out in Nebraska. It was an easier course, but I think I'm a pretty good golfer, but I have my days when I'm just playing terrible. But I've been playing a long time, so that helps. You know what I mean?
I've been playing for 3 months.
Right.
I'm playing with guys who've been going out for years.
The guys that I know that have done it since they've been a kid, those are the best. It's anything else. I wish I started it then, but so I'm not a good golfer. I'm not a horrendous golfer, but. Those are some of the main things I mostly do.
Speaking of Vermont, we have a pretty cool game, December 30th. we're going down to the University of Vermont.
Yeah, technically up.
Up. How did you arrange that? Because that's like last year we played Holy Cross and unbelievable experience, good team. Obviously, not even close to.
Yeah, how good University is.
University of Vermont lost to Duke last year in the first round. Won their conference.
Pretty good.
A lot of Canadians go. Actually, there's 3 Canadians on their team right now who I've not played against, but
you know who they are and stuff. Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, realistically, most of the time it's just those Division 1s are reaching out to Division 3s to get exhibition games. Obviously, we're going to play on December 30th, so for some teams, if they don't have like a holiday tournament, it's obviously a long break for them to not be playing any competitive games. Obviously, you can scrimmage and practice and stuff, but I think they're just looking for times when you played Holy Cross. It was during the break too. Yeah.
It's a similar time.
Yeah, so it's like one of those things where I think they're just looking for games at the right times to keep their guys in shape. Also, it would give opportunities for guys that maybe don't play as much to get more time. So obviously, they get to play a game, get to work on their skills, show the coach that they're improving, and
for sure.
Obviously, it helps out teams like us. To have a game, and obviously we get to go experience what like a Division 1 game would be like. UVM's a great place to go play a game. I've been to a couple different games there. I went actually and saw the year before I went to St. Bonaventure to be a special assistant. I actually went up to the game to see them play at UVM, and they get great crowds up there. They have a great fan base, so it's a cool little like stadium vibe. It fills up quickly, and it's fun, and I think it's going to be a good time. And we're obviously going to have a break right there. We'll have just come back from
27th, I think.
Yeah,
so a couple of days
from home, so we'll probably be out of shape a little bit, but a good chance to go up and play a game. I think at the same time, it'll also kind of get us ready. Like in this conference, we do have to make some long trips where, if we're going to St. Joe, Maine, I think it's like a similar distance. So we're going to have to get on the bus. We're going to have to drive there, like eat on the way, get off the bus, wake ourselves up a little bit, get those dead legs or whatever going.
I'm happy we woke up because I'm a big bus sleeper.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah, sleeper. Hey, get a nap in on the way, and then like I said, play the game right after a long trip. So I think it's also kind of like just getting us ready for those type of situations.
I want to say I'm going to watch that game, but I'm probably not going to. Like I really would like to see you guys play it, but it's not going to happen. It's just too far.
It's just a tall task.
You're going to be at home. You can stream it.
I'm also going to be at home, too.
I was going to say, you won't be back.
Double not going to happen.
Exactly.
It's going to be an awesome experience.
Maybe if you were from Montreal or something, then you could just like pop down over the border.
Yeah, think about it.
I think Toronto's a little too far.
There's something else I want to ask, because there's one of the kids I was training in the summer. He's kind of really struggling with. He just went up a really high level in basketball. He went from playing at a really low AAU team to like a prep school that's quite good.
Yeah.
And he's really struggling with like not playing and dealing with stuff. So for the kid who's listening to this, sitting on the bench of their high school or middle school team, what can they do to get more minutes?
I mean, obviously every case is always going to be different. Each person probably has like a specific set of challenges. Again, maybe it comes back to that trust. Like, does the coach trust you? Do you know everything that he's asking you to do? Are you always like trying to be in the right spot? Are you working hard? Are you coming every day and upholding, like we said, those standards and values that the coach is looking for? Because again, it's like you getting on the court is like a culmination of all those different things. It's not just how you're physically performing. So make sure you're checking all those boxes, and then, depending on how good you are or how well you're playing, like if sometimes you just have to keep developing. You have to keep getting better, stay in the gym, shoot more, handle the ball more. Like, the coaches we're not like trying to not play guys that are going to help win games. Like I know that's kind of one of those things of like, oh, like the coach maybe doesn't like you or has like is playing politics or whatever. And those situations do happen, but I think like most of the time, the coaches want to put guys in the game that are going to help them win. So I think my, advice would be to like don't get discouraged, don't give up on it. Like figure out what you can do better. Like continue to be motivated, to be driven. Like, hey, the coach maybe he's overlooking you. Like whatever you need to use for motivation, like you need to continue to put action forward and do a better job in something. Like it's that whole like, internal or external mindset of, hey, like I'm not doing well. It's the coach's fault. It's this thing's fault. It's all this external stuff. Or I'm not doing well. What can I do better? Like I'm not as locked in as I need to be. I'm not performing as well as I need to be. I don't know the plays as well as I need to be. So I think make sure that you have that like internal mindset of like, hey, what can I do better? And stay striving forward, like in the sense of, hey, there's going to be an opportunity for you at some point. Sometimes it comes from an injury. Maybe it's a game where like coach gets you in because the team's down or the team's up, whatever it is. It's like Tom Brady used to talk about, like Tom Brady was like the third quarterback, or he was like the fifth quarterback when he went to Michigan, and he was just saying like he would only get like 3 reps a game or a practice. So he was like, those 3 reps were my Super Bowl. Like I would go out and make those 3 reps the most important, amazing reps ever, so that next practice maybe he got 4 reps, then maybe he got 7 reps, and then like, you know what I mean? If every single thing that you're doing it to the best of your possible ability and you're treating it like the Super Bowl, like you're going to, make an impact, and the coach is probably going to give you a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and hopefully you'll get to where you want to be.
We talked about this a little bit in our team meeting, but I kind of wanted to expand on a little bit for our audience. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean to you to have success, and then kind of going off that, like to do something special? Mm-hmm. How do you kind of quantify that, and what does that mean to you?
You're saying for like the team?
For the team. For
like
this year? Yeah, for this year, what do you think, what would you consider successful and like doing something special? Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think, again, like doing something special, like every team can do something special. That's kind of like why I brought that up. And again, I don't know if you necessarily know in the beginning what that special thing is, because obviously there's those normal things of saying like, hey, we'd like to make the playoffs this year. You know what I mean? That's everybody's goal is going to be to win. Like I don't always like having winning as a goal, because like if you play any sport or you compete in anything, that's like the natural, de facto thing. You compete because you want to win. So I do think obviously like we want to get to the playoffs. Every team wants to get to the playoffs. So being able to improve how many games we've won or get to the playoffs would obviously be something special. But we kind of talked about in our team meeting, like for this team, I think like doing something special could be laying the groundwork, laying the foundation for the future of Elms men's basketball, of like changing the culture by changing our habits, changing our behaviors, living up to the standards, living up to the values that we know are going to get us to where we want to be, which is, successful in the sense of, hey, like us not winning the conference this year doesn't mean we don't have a successful season. For sure. You know what I mean? So I think those are the things that I'm most focused on is, hey, we'll figure out what's special as the season goes along and we can continue to focus on it. But being successful, that's kind of why I like to say like excellence versus success. I like to strive towards excellence because I think excellence is more about being the best that you can possibly be, whereas like sometimes successful is comparing yourself to others. So you've heard like the saying, like comparison's the thief of joy. Sure. You know what I mean? Like your worst, your biggest enemy or whatever opponent is yourself, obviously. So for us, it's like, hey, we need to be better than we were in the past as compared to what Elms was last year and the years before that. And I think like that will be successful if at the end of the year we're like, hey, like we showed up every day, we got better, we did those little things that we needed to do to become a more legit program, and hopefully at the same time some more wins come with that. But I think like at the end of the day, if we know, we can have peace of mind and knowing that, we did our best when it came to trying to check all those boxes.
For sure. We only got like 2 things last year in these.
Well, I was going to ask. So you've been a head coach for 5 practices. Yeah. Have you learned anything so far from? Or I mean, obviously you navigated the whole preseason. You navigated all the stuff. Is there anything that you kind of learned through the first 4% of the season, however much it's been?
I mean, I think like something that sticks out in the beginning is just like continuing to like tailor the practices so that like I'm as efficient as possible. Like there's a lot to get in. There's a lot to do.
They go by fast.
And so they go by fast. Things take longer than I'm expecting sometimes to make sure that the guys like are doing it the right way. Because again, I'm big on like making sure that you guys are learning and I'm teaching it properly, because like I don't want to just do drills that look intense, but like we're doing everything wrong. You know what I mean? So I think just for me, it's like I want to make sure that I continue to be super organized and have a great plan going forward to make sure that we have everything in and that we're fully prepared for obviously our first scrimmage and then our first game. So just like when you're actually the one that's organizing the practices, you realize how many practices you have, what you have to get in. When you're the head coach, like, there's a lot of like moving parts to that as far as like getting everything aligned. It's like a puzzle. So I definitely, when you're the assistant coach, like you might tell the coach what you want to do for like a practice thing, but you don't really have to worry about getting whatever in and figuring it all out. You get to show up to practice and coach. So that's probably the main thing so far.
I've asked this to a couple other coaches, and we've asked this to a bunch of players too. But do you have any crazy college basketball stories over your?
Yeah, I remember you guys have done that or said that in some of the other podcasts that I listened to. So I was trying to think of some. One of them that came to mind. The first one that came to mind was like a high school basketball story. Was my junior year. We were practicing on like a Saturday morning, or it might have been a Sunday morning, and so my head coach, he was a really good basketball player. He didn't end up playing, or he went to college, played for a little bit, but he was a great player in high school and everything. And so him and one of the players were arguing because this one player on our team made a move and did like a spin move, and he was arguing that it was a travel, then the player was arguing that it wasn't travel. So then he's like, give me the ball, and so then he went and drove down the lane and did this spin move, and he literally broke his ankle.
Like he broke his ankle.
Yeah, our head coach.
That's terrible.
Like he went down in a heap on the floor, and his ankle was like broken. Like they literally, like our assistant coach had to like pick him. We had to pick him up, cancel the rest of practice. He had to go directly to the ER, and like he probably resented that. He had to coach on crutches the rest of the season. Broke his ankle. Yeah. No, I mean he was like our best player, so it didn't matter. But I thought that was pretty hilarious overall. I mean, again, there's always some like random crazy stuff that happens, I guess, throughout the year that, some of the stuff you remember is usually not stuff that you'd bring up again on the podcast or whatever, but wild stuff goes down sometimes. And but no, that was one of the funniest things that happened.
That's funny.
I do remember like one game, like the fire alarm went off in the middle of the game. Like we all had to like leave the benches and like go outside crazy. And then like come back in. That was like,
that's brutal. That
was tough. That was when I was like coaching high school, and there was this one time too. Like this kid took a charge, and he actually like however he fell, like he ended up almost like having like a seizure. Oh, nothing he ended up being perfectly fine, but like when he took the charge, like his head like or whatever, the way that his neck hit the ground, like his like arm seized up, and it was like super scary. I remember like everybody in the gym was like, holy fuck, like is this kid like okay? And he had to be taken out on like an ambulance and stuff. And so I mean there's a million different like random little things that happen, I guess, like you kind of forget more than you remember. But yeah, no, those are some things that I just remember. And then obviously sometimes some coaches get pissed off and they might do some things, and you're like, whoa. So
yeah, we know those.
We'll leave those off for now.
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up. Do you have just one piece of advice to give to yourself?
My younger self.
That's what we ask all of our guests at the end of the podcast.
I think it's a great question. It's like one of those ones where you're like, you really have to look back at yourself and be like, oh, what would I tell myself? And I think, for me, maybe I would have like tried to get into the coaching like a little earlier, and I would have like locked in on like wanted to do things the right way. I wish maybe like when I went to Marist originally that I got involved with the team, maybe as like a manager or a student assistant, knowing that I wanted to get into this. But I think really just like from way back is like, just like kind of what we talked about, like why I love coaching and why I want to do this. Like just enjoy every day. Like don't be worried so much about like what other people think. And like, obviously I was a kid, like I used to overthink like, being cool and doing this and doing that. So I think like the earlier I could have just like realized that like being your authentic self and just being who you are, like the people, people that are supposed to be around you will stay around you. And the people that don't, like, that's on them. It is what it is, right? Sure. So just be yourself, be authentic. If you're weird, be weird. Like, if you're nerdy, be nerdy. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? I like
if you're
Harry
Christian,
Potter,
you talk about your
like
macros, talk about those macros.
Like, just be about it. You know what I mean? What's that?
No, I said if you're Chris and just talk about
get on those
macronutrients 24/7, then just
if you're over there with your aminos,
exactly.
Like whatever you're doing, do it. Like I think be you. Be you at the end of the day, because there's only one you. So
awesome.
Yep.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Right,
Thank you for making
that was
time.
awesome. Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate you guys. This is fun.
I know that you must feel